Welcome to Waypoint Connect, and it's, for me, a great privilege to be welcoming Sunet and Tiaan. Guys, welcome to Waypoint Connect.
Thank you for having us.
Hi.
Right, so we're just going to pretend that you didn't see that, and we're going to jump straight into this week's episode, which is about marriage. That's why we got Tiaan and Sunet here. We're going to be talking about marriage. They've been married for 4 years, in 2 months' time for 5 years. Right,
Oh,
so
wow.
guys, you've beaten the national average. Well done
Really?
on that.
What is it? Is the national average shorter than that?
Shorten that. 50% of marriages don't last for the first 2 years.
Sure.
And then the first 5 years is like the big marker. If you can make it for the first 5, you've made it.
So it's smooth sailing from now on.
From now on, it just gets better
Okay.
until you have kids.
Oh,
But we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, let's not. Let's not.
But that's exactly kind of where we're focusing on, because after getting married, the next big marker is when you have kids. That's when the dynamic of the relationship changes. But for a young couple like yourselves, and sometimes it's an older couple in a young relationship, but we're talking about a young relationship,
You're too kind, Dirk.
is that this is a season for you to consolidate, grow, build, find yourself, find the other person. And that's why we wanted to chat with you to learn from you. For any other couple that's just decided to get married and be in that season of their marriage, kind of a heads up for what to avoid, what to focus on. So
Yeah.
what would you guys say?
I think for me, the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned the national average being most marriages don't make it past 2 years, and I was thinking to myself, how can that be? But I realized that a marriage without Jesus is gonna be hard. And so for me, I just think initially when we got married, it's obviously honeymoon phase, everything's great, but then it comes to a point where you also wake up one morning and you ask yourself the question, what is my role in this marriage and in the kingdom? What is God calling me to within this marriage and within this unity? And I think for me that was actually quite a struggle in the beginning. Marriage was great, but I was asking myself this question because the world can sometimes show you these pictures of what a wife should be and all of that. And I think what it came down to was still the purposes that God has for my life, and that remained my purpose. Now it was just united with Tiaan's purpose in going forward, but I'm still an individual in God's eyes, and the purpose of my life is still a godly purpose. So the dynamic only changes a little bit and actually becomes so much greater because now it's like a team. So it also, you get to kind of share the load, and so it's just awesome. You always know like someone's got your back and you in this with someone. It's really great.
And what I pick up from what you've shared is the implied communication that they're supposed to be.
Yes.
And not just assuming I'm on this journey of finding my purpose that God has given me and assuming the other person knows what it is.
Yes.
It's that actively sharing, communicating, and what does that mean for us?
Yeah, definitely.
Tiaan, for you?
Yeah, I think we did a lot of premarital questions and stuff, and we walked through that with someone to really see what is the blind spots, why are we doing this? I think a lot of people just get married because that's the next step.
Yeah.
And also linking in with what we've just did as series is we kind of think, I'm unhappy with my life. If I'm in this new season being married, then these problems will go away just to disappear, just to understand that I'm actually the problem.
Yeah.
And that's part of that prep work, is working on me,
Yeah.
not working on the other person.
No, yeah, for sure.
And one of the questions that was asked to us, in that premarital was, why are you two meant to be together? What is your two's purpose for being together?
Yeah.
That's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
If you don't know what that is you always going to be at odds with one another, because it's going to be, it's like Sunet said, it's not going to be a team working towards the same and being the same. You're always going to be this one and that one, and I'm supporting, or I have to support you and you have to support me, and why aren't you, those stuff, it gives an opportunity for those stuff to creep in, where if you answer those questions early on, and even before marriage, you can answer those questions honestly, I think, and that purpose is clear. I think that really paves the way for any guy wanting to get married or just starting out, to answer those questions as early and as honestly as possible.
Yeah.
And to make sure, I mean, if you're not on the same page with that, either get on the same page or rethink
that decision. Because it links in with what you've said, with the national average, and I think that's why they don't go past the 2-year mark. Because if you had to ask them that question, their answer probably would have been, because it's the logical next step. Because we're going to save money if we share a budget.
Yeah.
And those are all the wrong reasons for making that decision.
Yeah.
And sorry, but if you don't want what the rest of the world wants, you have to do what the rest of the world is not doing.
Yeah.
And what is that thing? What is that? Because if I'm doing the same thing that all the other people are doing, I can't be surprised if I expect the same or the same results come knocking.
Yeah, we always say, and if you any way a part of Waypoint, you would have heard us saying, or Andy saying, marriage is a submission competition. So I think that in, I want to say, the Christian setting of marriage, or God's intention for marriage, is what makes a marriage with God as foundation, makes it work, is always putting the other's needs ahead of your own, and you'll actually find that your own life is also much better in doing that. So that's definitely, I think, a principle to be applied that really does bear fruit in a marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, part of what you attribute your success to is the preparation and went in beforehand.
Definitely.
And it's, if you think of it, makes perfect sense, because it's probably one of the biggest decisions you're ever going to make, because this is forever and ever. This is not just for this season.
Yes.
And if a decision is that important, why wouldn't we want to put in that amount of effort to prepare for it?
Yes, no, for sure.
And then also bringing in the dynamic of there's higher values. It's going to ask more of me, but the rewards are going to be there if I look at what God wants for me within this relationship. Challenges. What are some of the big challenges that you guys faced that you were unprepared for, despite the preparation beforehand?
Despite all preparation.
Now, knowing Tiaan, I know some of this will be very relational specific for you, but if you can just generalize for a second.
Well, the funny thing is with our preparation before getting married, is the big warning light for us was communication. Because Sunet wears her heart on her sleeve, she tells you exactly how she feels. And I am completely the opposite. I don't talk how I feel. I would, divert, or I'd process things in my mind. So it's something that I think, if I can speak on behalf of Sunet here, which I don't usually do, but is, I think, for her a big frustration in the beginning was when I don't speak. Her thinking, well, maybe she did something wrong, that's why I'm not speaking, when meanwhile all that's happening with me is there's white noise in my head. I'm not even thinking of. So for me, the thing was, when, like she said, it's a submission competition, but it's actually deeper than that. It's a, when you say God is love, and you say you love that person, what I actually mean is I have God for that person. Meaning I am, it's no longer me. I'm putting you first. That's that thing. So even in that, even in when I'm tired or, just jolling in my own head, I have to consciously say, listen, but I'm not doing Sunet a service. She needs to know, even if it's just something of how I'm feeling. I need to communicate that, and so that's something that I've had to learn to do. Is even though I don't want to, or even though it doesn't come naturally to me, I need to communicate how I feel for her, because I'm doing it for her. It's not about myself anymore. And those single people that are out there, and or you're in a relationship and you're thinking, oh, what's the difference between a relationship and getting married? The big thing is nothing is about you anymore. You can't make decisions. Any decision that you make is with another person in mind. There cannot exist something like a selfish decision. Always has consequences in a marriage. There's no two ways about it. Yeah.
A selfish decision will have a negative impact on your relationship.
Every time.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. I think linking up to communication is unspoken expectations. So going to temperaments again, my temperament is like this and Tiaan's temperament is like this. So I'm like this and he's more laid back. So I expect him to I just expect him to know that I would like him to do this because this is how I am. But if I don't voice that expectation, it's very unfair of me to then get mad at him because he did not do that thing, but I never actually
Without him knowing
said it out loud. So there's that component to it, but then also, again, with a submission competition and taking it a bit deeper than that, and that's what love is, and that's what love requires. It requires that extra bit of work from you. So what I've had to learn is, because I'm a bit more like an organized, controlling type personality, and Tiaan's a bit more relaxed, sometimes you would maybe want to take it personally if he didn't do something, but then I'll take a step back and say, just quickly assess who Tiaan is and what his character is. Do you for a second think that he intentionally did not do this thing to hurt and harm? No, he did it because he's Tiaan. And then you go, do you know what? It's not the end of the world. So move on. And, so learning to pick your battles and to step into the other one's temperament and always give them the benefit of the doubt, because we love each other and we unconditionally and we'll go to the ends of the earth for each other, then surely, yeah.
And what's the awesome thing about that is when you start doing things outside of your natural to meet that person with that, and the other person does the same.
Yeah.
So what actually starts to happen is you actually, that becoming one thing, you actually start thinking the way that person thinks. You start to, it's almost like your relationship with God. The more I spend time with God, the more I engage with Him, the more I start to think like He thinks, the more I experience Him in different ways. And then, you start, and then when someone comes to me and says, Sunet did this, or Sunet did that, or Sunet said this, Sunet said that, I could tell them immediately, that sounds like Sunet. No, I think you're wrong. That doesn't sound like something Sunet would do. Because I know Sunet. I've been in her shoes, I've done the work. Not the
it is work. It is work.
Guys, awesome. Thank you very much. It's like some really practical stuff, and I think there's a lot for even people that have been married for years that can work on that.
And look, we're under no illusion that kids changes the whole dynamic. But I also believe, and my brother said this to me, because he has 3 kids. He said, the amazing part of being married and not having kids is you get to figure the stuff out, because when kids come, they only accentuate the gaps in communication that there are. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. So
kids aren't going to fix the problem, they're just going to make those problems worse.
It's almost amplified. So and that's where we are at.
The work will continue.
So I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much, learning from Tiaan and Sunet what they've been through and experienced, and we're happy for you guys for 5 years coming up in 2 months. Congratulations on that. If this has triggered something in your relationship that you want to address, speak about, or ask questions, then feel free to contact Tiaan, have a coffee with him and Sunet, and unpack this a bit further, because we them specifically are interested in you being successful in your relationship. So feel free to reach out and have a coffee and address those things, figure those things out. And remember, have a great week.